Let's begin with a moment of reflection and unity. Mariel Angela Prion will guide us through an opening prayer, after which we will honor our nation with the singing of the Philippine National Anthem. Everyone, please rise.
Let us all remember that we are in the presence of God. Almighty God, we thank you for the opportunity to gather here today as one family, who each share the wonders you have made. Thank you for the gift of life and for allowing us to live in a world filled with abundance and beauty. We humbly ask for your forgiveness for our shortcomings as stewards of the earth. May you guide us to the right path and help us look after the earth and its biodiversity to which we are a part of. Bless us with your wisdom to help us fulfill our responsibilities to protect, restore, and cherish the only home that we will ever have. Fill our hearts with love and compassion so that we can come together as one global community and create a better and sustainable future for generations to come. All this we ask in your name. Amen.
Everyone, please be seated. So good morning once again. This week has taken us on an extraordinary journey of climate awareness and collective action. Today, we mark the culmination of this journey by putting a spotlight on the power and potential of our youth in driving solutions to climate change. ClimaTalks, Youth in Climate Action, is a focal point for the voices of the youth. It aims to contribute valuable recommendations to COP28, emphasizing the pivotal role of young individuals. Throughout the day, we will share insights and innovative ideas generated in breakout sessions covering food security, ecosystem and biodiversity, and stakeholder engagement. To commence our program, we are honored to hear from two influential individuals committed to environmental sustainability and climate action. Firstly, we have Secretary Robert E.A. Borge, the Vice Chairperson and Executive Director of the Climate Change Commission. His leadership has played a crucial role in shaping climate policy in the Philippines. Everyone, let us warmly welcome Secretary Borge for his opening remarks.
Thank you very much for that warm introduction. Magandang umaga ho sa ating lahat. Good morning. One more time. Good morning po sa ating lahat. There you go. That is the energy of Filipino youth. Palakpakan po natin ang ating sarili. I'm very pleased and happy to be here. I do have a few questions before we start with the formal welcome of the group, if the group will allow me to. May mga tanong lang po ako sa inyo kung pwede niyong sagutin. Are you a wind turbine? Nakatingin ako kay ma'am. Are you a wind turbine, ma'am? Huh? Because you've got the power to turn my world around. Nakatingin ako kay ma'am na nakamask. Ayaw niya naman tanggalin yung mask. Para kang climate change, ma'am. Ang hirap mong i-ignore kasi pag nandyan ka, ramdam na ramdam. Ayaw pa rin tanggalin yung mask niya. I don't know why. Ma'am, yung pag-ibig mo parang bagyo, pero iniiwan akong giba at nababaha sa lungkot. Finally, ma'am, baka naman pwede mo nang tanggalin ang face mask mo. Ang feelings ko parang carbon footprint. Kahit gustuhin kong mabawasan, laging lumalaki. Pero dapat, we should lessen our carbon footprint. Ha? And paano natin mapipigilan ang global warming, ma'am? Huwag tayo maging plastic. But, okay, I started out with just these things, no? We started out on a light note and, get things a little bit on the joke side. But we are here for a very serious reason. And I'm very honored and pleased to have everybody here because we are in the company of youth leaders. People say that the youth are the leaders of tomorrow. I will dare propose and strongly contend that the youth leaders are leaders of today. Do you agree with me? Well, I guess you know why that is. You are already leaders in your own right. You may not be formal leaders in governance, in government, or in the private sector, but you are leading the way. And I'm very happy that we're all here. Before I do start, I would like to acknowledge the presence of distinguished officials and partners, as well as friends, for joining us today. The Chairperson and the Chief Executive Officer of the National Youth Commission, Honorable Ronald Giancarlo Cardema. Of course, our co-partner, the Senior Vice President and Head of Corporate Affairs, Nestle Philippines, Mr. Jose Uy III. We have the Founder and Creative Director of Cicada, if I say it correctly, Mr. Lester De Llosa. Our key presenters per pillar, Mr. Nigel Anthony Tan of Climate Tracker Asia, Incorporated, whom we've been working on for the longest time. Also, Director of Programs and Development, Agrea, Ms. Christine Hodloman. And for Stakeholder Engagement, Circle Manager, Mayumo Rover Scouts, Mr. Ralph Eric Bernardo. Okay. Maraming salamat po and again, welcome to this very important event. This is day 5 of our week-long program for Climate Change Consciousness Week. And this does not mean that we think of the youth as an afterthought or as the last part. Sabi nga namin sa Climate Change Commission, we save the best for last. And the best, of course, is which sector? I'm sorry, parang hindi ata nakasagot. Which is the best sector? All right, good. Ang youth dapat energetic at articulate. I do have here, ladies and gentlemen, a prepared speech. But if you would allow me to, if I can just veer away from what's prepared and speak more from the heart, based on what I see today and my interactions with everybody in the room. If that's fine with you po. Yes, no? Si ma'am nagtanggal na ng mask. Thank you, ma'am. So yes, we're a go? Okay, thank you. With all due apologies to my able team that writes very good speeches, I think what I'd like to say, number one, is that the adage, the youth is the hope of the country, is not just lip service. At the Climate Change Commission, we are fully aware, appreciative, and thankful for the role of the youth in transformative climate action. We think of the youth as a key sector because you are not just leaders of today, but you will be able to move forward to the next generation the solutions that we need and the programs that we so need in this world. Climate change, as you all know, is a global, historic, and systemic problem. It is the governance challenge of our generation. I am no longer part of the youth sector, but when I was young, I remember there were already programs and projects that attempted to address the problems of the environment then. Um, more than a year ago, we had the Stockholm um, meeting, and that particular meeting was more than 50 years old, and I was not born then. But what struck me at that time when I was in Stockholm, yung mga problema po nung ginawa yung convention na yon, 50 years onward, problema pa rin natin. And nadagdagan na ng it's called the triple planetary crisis. So we have pollution, we have biodiversity loss, and then now we have climate change. So imagine we had CBD more than 50 years ago, and that was going to be part of our generation and the generation before us. They were supposed to take care of the environment so that us, the next generation, would have a planet that would be much better than what was with their generation. We are at this point sa ating governance. Kami po ay nasa gobyerno ngayon in areas of formal leadership. And we know that climate change is an existential threat. Alam po nating lahat yan. When we talk about climate change, it is the lives, the livelihood, and the collective future of our nation, our people, and indeed the globe, the world that is at stake. Kaya, kailangan ng agaran and urgent action. Kailangan ng urgent action, but the actions, I think, if we learn from the lessons from the past, especially CBD, kailangan maipass on siya or more than passing on, may linkage sa susunod na henerasyon. Bakit? Kasi pag wala ang sense ng intergenerational responsibility and intergenerational connectedness, baka ang ipapasa na lamang natin, hindi solusyon, kung hindi problema pa rin. At baka, at ito ang concern namin sa Climate Change Commission, baka hindi handa ang susunod na henerasyon para to take on the mantle of formal responsibility for our nation. And that's a very, very important step in making sure that solutions that we create are implemented and implemented well and carried on to the next generation. So activities like this, focusing on the youth, especially you, are critical so that we ensure that the entire process of governance continues to be strengthened, lalong-lalo na sa Pilipinas. Ang mga kabataan nating Pilipino I was just at the talk at the University of Santo Tomas, and we told them, and we know, there is creativity, there is intelligence, there is innovation, there is a lot of energy from our youth. I would be most humble to say na hindi kami ang magtuturo lang sa kabataan. Ang kabataan ay may ituturo sa amin at sa atin. Palakpakan po natin ang sarili-sarili natin. Please, it is an important idea, an important lesson. Dahil kayo ay kabataan, you are in a special place to say things, to articulate what you want, to articulate what you need, and to push the agenda further and to broaden the space of discussion. At inaanyayahan ko po kayo at ini-encourage ko kayo. Bakit? Dahil kayo po ang sasalo sa ginagawa namin. Kami po gusto namin to bequeath to you a nation that is much better. But it is not a one-off, neither is it just a one-directional stream. Kailangan po habang nandiyan kayo at habang nandito kami, tayo ay nag-uusap at natututo sa isa't isa. Now we are going to find out later today what the youth ideas and principles are when it comes to climate change. This is not just an exercise in passing on a piece of paper. Why do I say this? It is an exercise of the will and the intellect of the Filipino youth to identify, analyze, assess, articulate, and strategize towards the future. These are skills that we drastically and critically need to have for the youth. Dahil yun nga, kung kami ay may maibibigay na solusyon, definitely we will not be able to solve everything. So kailangan ang susunod na henerasyon will be equipped not only with the energy, with the puso, maganda at importante ang puso at commitment, but importante rin ang intellectual rigor at discipline para to make things happen. And I hope the youth realize that. The Filipino youth has a lot of potential. Again, very creative, very innovative, kanina nga sa UST sabi, magaling sa hacks. Ang tanong lagi sa akin, bakit nyo ginagawa yan? Ganito pwede mas madali. So imagine if we harness that energy that you have, mapapadali ang mga bagay based on science, and then with your energy, we work closely together and find solutions that are easily implemented and easily passable and translatable to the larger nation. Think of what the Philippines can be. Think of where we can be in terms of growth and development. Think where we can be in terms of climate change action. So I'd like to end with a challenge to our youth. Kayo po ay leader na ngayon. And you will be formal leaders in formal capacities a little bit later on. The challenge for you is to think critically, think strategically, more than just the contingencies at ang mga urgencies ng immediate. Think towards the future para meron tayong direksyon. Pero importante din for you to look back. To look back on the previous generation, find out what they did wrong, and make sure that it does not happen again, working with them, but also learn from them. Because I believe that every generation has his or her specific contributions to the betterment of our nation. With that, I think ang bansa natin, with the leadership from the national government up to the barangay level, will be able to work together as one nation. Sabi nga sa ating team, as one bayanihan approach, we will be able to achieve the Philippines that we want. I ask this in closing. Do we want a Philippines that's great? Parang na-overwhelm kayo sa tanong. Do you want a Philippines that's great? Do we all want a great Philippines? Are we ready, therefore, to take on great challenges and great sacrifices individually and collectively? Are we willing to work together despite our differences in opinions, in our beliefs, in our backgrounds? Are we willing to work together towards the collective core interests of our country? Parang mahina. Are we willing to do that? Okay, based on your answer, I sincerely think that we are on the right track for a better Philippines and a better world. So maraming salamat po sa inyo. I expect to learn so much from today, and I'm grateful that we have the youth that we have in the Philippines that we are sure will be able to lead us to a path of a greater and better future for all of us. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Secretary Borje, for your warm and inspiring welcome, emphasizing the role of the youth for today's event. Following Secretary Borje, we will gain insights from Mr. Jose Uy III, the Senior Vice President and Head of Corporate Affairs of Nestle Philippines. Nestle's dedication to sustainability and climate action is truly commendable. Let us now watch a video to learn more about their commitment.
This morning's session is very interesting because it's entitled Youth in Climate Action. Now, before I begin to address you, let me take this opportunity to acknowledge Secretary Robert Borje and his management team of the Climate Change Commission. Of course, a warm welcome to all of you youth leaders and of course to my fellow kasambuhay sa kalikasan. I think this is also an opportune time for me to apologize for not being able to address you personally, and so I decided to make this video instead. Pasensya na po because it coincided with another project which we are launching today. It is entitled Project Kasambuhay Forest here at La Mesa Dam. So as we speak, I am actually planting trees here in La Mesa Dam. Of course, now moving on, what makes me excited this morning is that ClimaTalks is actually a sequel of ClimaAction. If you remember, ClimaAction was held a couple of weeks ago at the Marriott Hotel, where we gathered leaders from the government sector, from the business or private sector, the youth leaders, and we also involved artists from the GMA Sparkle Network. And that forum was designed in such a way that we would collaborate all the stakeholders, we gather them, discuss the way forward in addressing the Philippine National Adaptation Plan, including the National Determined Contribution. Now you might ask, why is it that we have ClimaTalks if we already did ClimaAction? Well, this is for the simple reason that we recognize the indispensable role that the youth plays in driving climate action. We wanted to give you the platform, the opportunity to share your thoughts, your innovative ideas, including your concern about what's happening in our community and in our environment. Rest assured that that all of us here gathered, the various stakeholders, will do our best not just to listen but to take action. More importantly, we would plan to bring it into fruition, all these ideas that you will present to us today. So I bid you well for this morning session. Please take advantage of this opportunity to communicate to us, because at the end of the day, this is about your future as you will inherit the planet. So we believe that if we work together, because the youth cannot do it alone, neither can we in the private sector, neither the government. But if we work together, yun nga yung tinatawag nating kultura ng Pilipino, yung bayanihan, we can make wonders and we can work together. Sabi nga nila, it takes a whole community to raise a child, and or a village for that matter. So dapat lang tayo magtulungan para sa hinaharap nating lahat. So thank you very much. I wish you well in today's presentation. Mabuhay po tayong lahat. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Mr. Uy, for setting the stage with your insights and commitment to the cause of climate action. Now, before we proceed further, let us dive into the context of today's event with an introductory video for ClimaAction. This video will provide a glimpse into the essence of ClimaAction and why it holds a significant place in our collective pursuit for a sustainable future. As mentioned earlier by Secretary Borje and Mr. Jose Uy, the power of the youth in ClimaTalks is a crucial component of ClimaAction. In ClimaTalks, the youth design solutions for the three pillars of the Philippine National Adaptation Plan. Let us roll the video.
The youth's voice is very important in driving the pressure that's needed to actually lead transformational, genuine climate action.
As an artista, it's not all about being in showbiz, but also to influence other people to help in any kind of way. And syempre na-inspire din ako na tumulong more on our climate change kasi para din naman sa atin to lahat.
You'll realize na kahit ang dami-dami na nating nawala, ang dami-dami ng naubos, there is still so much left here to fight for. And that will buoy us into the future, carry us over into the future. Knowing about these things will expand our capacity to love, because when we love something, we do everything to protect it. So I hope these things will enjoin you into creating a better, kinder, and more compassionate world.
So we need to act now, guys, and converge whenever and wherever possible. Because as we say in the CCC, buhay, kabuhayan, at kinabukasan ang nakataya sa usapin ng climate change.
Truly find your role in the ecosystem of change and lean into it. And then harness the power of the collective. Because individually, we're great. But together, we are infinitely more powerful.
I feel so great kasi I learned a lot. It widened my knowledge about climate change, ecosystem, yung part ng ecosystem, yung mga ways natin kung paano maka-help sa environment, and on how we market ourselves sa TikTok, ganyan. So yeah, I learned a lot.
Helping our environment to be a better place for the whole world. So, ayan. So, I'm encouraging you guys to reuse, reduce, recycle, and of course, help our climate change to be better for our future.
Climate is a long-term advocacy, just the same way that deforestation isn't achieved in a year or 3 years. So you need to take care of yourself, make sure you have a sense of humor as you do the work, and make sure that you take care of each other, because it really takes a village to make a difference.
It's important for the youth to have avenues such as this because it allows them to find a space where they can collaborate with like-minded and passionate individuals, and also a space to ask for accountability from the government and business sectors as well.
Again, the climate action requires action now that leads to transformational change. And the youth is a perfect check and balance route towards making sure that there's actual action that happens at the end of the day.
At this point, I'm thrilled to introduce a young and passionate representative who will share their perspective on amplifying youth voice, empowering the youth in climate action. This pivotal moment in our program as we emphasize the vital role of the youth in addressing climate change. Without further ado, please join me in extending a warm welcome to our esteemed youth representative, Mr. Lester Deliosa, Youth Representative to COP28.
COP28 signifies a pivotal moment for the global youth in the fight against climate change. As we witness the alarming acceleration of environmental degradation and global warming escalate to global boiling, we can never go back to business as usual practices. We demand a resolute climate action. We, the youth, are disproportionately affected by the ravages of climate change. We refuse the mere label of victims. Instead, we rise as dynamic contributors to climate action, wielding both determination and the crucial ability to spur transformation. We recognize our pivotal role in holding the Philippine national government accountable for executing their national determined contributions, or their NDCs, and demand transparency and urgency in their implementation. Amidst global turmoil, we're advocating for international collaboration to tackle the shared crisis of climate change. The energy crisis, it's a wake-up call. It's high time we ditch fossil fuel and shift towards sustainable and renewable energy and a just energy transition. The country is a haven for renewable resources, solar, wind, and geothermal. Yet the majority of our power still comes from coal. We are reminding and pushing the government to establish a dedicated fund for loss and damage. As years pass, our typhoons have become stronger and have hit places it never before. We cannot shy away from that anymore. Remember typhoons Yolanda, Odette, and Pablo. Food security stands as a cornerstone in our battle against climate change. The availability, access, and efficient utilization of food resources are not fundamental human rights, but also integral components in our quest for sustainable solutions. As climate change intensifies, disrupting agricultural patterns and altering ecosystems, ensuring food security becomes even more critical. It's not merely about having enough to eat anymore. It's about resilient agricultural practices that adapt to changing climates, equitable access to nutritious food for all, and minimizing waste in the production and distribution process. By addressing food security comprehensively, we do not only tackle hunger, but also contribute significantly to mitigating the impacts of climate change, especially here in the Philippines. In our pursuit of a sustainable future, the preservation of ecosystems and biodiversity stands as a fundamental pillar. It's more than just safeguarding nature. It's about restoring the delicate bond between humanity and the natural world. Regenerating ecosystems, conserving their harmony, and preserving biodiversity aren't merely noble pursuits. These are imperative for our survival. We are continuously urging stakeholders to prioritize the global stocktake process, emphasizing the importance of solid data, transparency, and accountability in tracking process. Young minds are ready to dive into research, crunch numbers, and actively participate, pushing countries to aim higher and limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Human rights cannot be sidelined. COP28's success hinges on respecting our freedom of speech and right to protest. The youth, our insights, and proposals must have a seat at the decision-making table for a transparent, inclusive, and ultimately successful outcome. Together, we stand on the precipice of transformation, ready to script a saga of change. Let's not merely unite. Let's forge an unbreakable alliance that propels us toward a future where every being thrives amidst a world that's not just sustained, but radiates fairness and equality for all.
Thank you, Mr. Deliosa, for sharing such profound insights and delivering a powerful message. Now, let's move forward to a significant highlight of today's event, the ceremonial turnover of the youth statements. May I invite on stage Secretary Robert E. A. Borje, Undersecretary Ronald Cardema of the National Youth Commission, and our esteemed youth representatives, Mr. Lester De Llosa, Mr. Nigel Anthony Tan, and Mr. Ralph Eric Bernardo. So in their hands, our youth representatives hold more than just paper. They carry the collective voices, aspirations, and commitments of our youth in climate action. This symbolic act is a testament to the unity and determination of our young leaders to effect positive change in our world. The statement stands as a constant reminder for our shared goals and serves as a source of inspiration, propelling us to work collectively for a more sustainable and resilient future. We extend our heartfelt appreciation to our youth representatives for your dedication and commitment to addressing climate change. Your voices matter, and we are here not only to hear them, but also to support and amplify them. Before we transition to our three pillars of focus, let us take a moment to hear from our climate advocate who defies the busy athlete stereotype. Meet Brian Bagunas, the MVP of the top volleyball league, who has graciously taken the time to share his insights on the critical importance of climate action.
Ang kabataan, ang pag-asa ng bayan. Lahat tayo, kasama ang mga atleta, ay katulong at kasangga laban sa climate change. Samahan natin ang Climate Change Commission. Makilahok at sabay-sabay, sama-sama nating siguraduhin ang isang magandang kinabukasan. Para sa karagdagang kalaman, bisitahin ang official website, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, at YouTube accounts ng Climate Change Commission. Laging tatandaan ang 4 R's. Refuse. Huwag bumili ng individually packed items at single-use plastic. Reduce. Kapag konti ang binili, konti din ang itatapon. Reuse. Maghanap ng mga bagay na maaaring gamitin uli o i-repurpose. Recycle. Isort ang mga item bago dalhin sa recycling centers at junk shops.
Someone deeply involved into sports, and as a competitive swimmer myself, I know the value of resilience and teamwork. So just like in sports, addressing climate change requires a collective effort and a commitment to go the distance. Brian Baguna's video is a reminder that no matter how busy life gets, we can all contribute to a greater good. Let's carry that enthusiasm and commitment forward. Now, let's dive into the heart of today's activity. We're about to embark on a series of presentations, each delving into key pillars in climate action. These discussions will revolve around food security, ecosystem and biodiversity, and stakeholder engagement. Let us begin with Mr. Nigel Anthony Tan, who is no stranger to the intricate dynamics of ecosystem and the importance of preserving biodiversity. As a fellow at Climate Tracker Asia Incorporated, he has devoted his efforts to understanding and championing the delicate balance that sustains our planet. Without further ado, let us welcome Mr. Nigel Anthony Tan to enlighten us with the critical topics of ecosystems and biodiversity.
Okay, hello. Okay. So hello, everyone. It's an honor to be in front of you here today to give this talk. Yes, let's go ahead with my presentation. So, again, I am Nigel Tan. Can we move on to the next slide? Next slide po. Ayan. So last November 11, I was given the opportunity to work together with fellow youth leaders, environmental advocates alike, to work on something that we presented right here. So it was actually some sort of a storyline process na we used it to develop how we would encourage people to think about ecosystems and biodiversity. So I'll just give a quick overview of what we presented here. No? Our main focus with what we presented was in indigenous practices and indigenous peoples. No? As you may know, ecosystems and biodiversity, it's a very thing na it's very tied with indigenous practices, indigenous beliefs. And we believe na through mainstreaming their practices, traditions, and even their cultural importances to this environment, we are able to help our environment recover, and not only recover, but go back to its original state before we have caused a lot of damage to it. I'll be diving it into a little bit more depth in this presentation. So let's move on to the next slide. Before we begin, I just want to give a short overview of what we're working with here. This may be familiar na for many of you, maybe for some hindi masyado familiar, so I'll just give a short overview, refresher na lang din. So, the Philippines, one of the most biodiverse countries in the world. No new, hindi bago yan. 70 to 80% of the world's flora and fauna can be found in the Philippines. And out of the 52,000 species na mahanap dito, kalahati nun endemic. What does endemic mean? Endemic means na it can only be found here in the Philippines. Some examples of that, Philippine eagle, tamaraw, mga ganon. We, the Philippines, is one of the most biodiversity hotspots, no? In fact, we have something na we proudly present to everyone in the world. It's called the Verde Island Passage. Not only is it the center of biodiversity in the Philippines, but it's the center of the center sa buong mundo. So this is something na pictured here in front. Itong sa baba, can anyone tell me, does anyone know what that is? Because I think it illustrates very well how biodiverse we are as a country due to our geology, our archipelagic nature. So, does anyone know what this is? Siguro dati kinakain nyo yan, ngayon hindi na masyado. Kasi natag na siya as endangered. So that's actually, does anyone want to, baka may alam, just shout it out. Hindi galunggong. That's the tawilis. So scientific name Sardinella tawilis. The tawilis is actually the only freshwater sardine in the entire world. Why is it the only freshwater sardine in the entire world? Well, if you are familiar with the geology of Taal Lake, you know that it's close to another bay in the Batangas area. Back in the 17th, 16th century, that used to be connected to the sea. But due to eruptions ng Taal volcano and the caldera, it closed off that piece of land permanently. And eventually, nag-desalinating water, and we came up with this unique species na it's the only one that can survive in freshwater conditions because sardines usually live in marine environments or the sea. So moving on to the next slide. Ayan. So I'll just run through this real quick para hindi naman kunwari nagle-lecture ako dito. So why are ecosystems important? No? Because they provide four main things. We have provisioning services, regulating, cultural, and supporting. We are all familiar with this. Siguro kung yung term hindi nyo alam, pag in-explain ko per term, malalaman nyo din kung ano yun. Provisioning. Ito yung mga directly na nakuha natin sa environment, mga isda, vegetables, timber that we use to build our homes, communities. Regulating, these are things na we rely on. Things like erosion prevention when we plant trees. No? That's why in terms of typhoon, palaging pinapag-usapan yung Sierra Madre. Because those are the things na regulating services that help protect our communities. Cultural, our interconnectedness to the environment, our spirituality. And supporting things like mga natural processes that keep everyone, literally everyone on Earth alive. Na it wouldn't be possible without these practices. So moving on to the next, there are some threats na we face in which I will help propose solutions also later on. So next slide, please. So some threats na we face, I've identified 5 here. So changes in land and sea use, resource exploitation, invasive species, pollution, and climate crisis. It's not limited to this, pero ito yung pinaka-5 na malaking sector na we need to address immediately. Changes in land and sea use. These are things like when we create forests, turn it into agricultural land. Resource exploitation is the overexploitation of our resources, so deforestation, mining, things like that. Invasive and alien species. If you know what this fish is sa baba, nakain nyo na yan for sure in your life. That's the tilapia. The tilapia is actually one of the most invasive species in the entire world. It was brought here to the Philippines as a form of food. Pero in some areas, no, it has completely taken over the lake ecosystems. And it has displaced many natural and native species. Also, the climate crisis and its effects. If you look at the picture here, that's a picture of a bleached coral reef. The climate crisis has affected especially makikita siya sa mga marine environments, very, very substantially. Things like ocean acidification, even though we think na parang, ocean acidification, anong magagawa niya? Slight decrease in pH, right? If you're not familiar, things like corals, things like sea snails, mga shells, mga mollusks, yung mga kinakain natin, mga tahong, yung mga shells nila, they're all made of calcium carbonate. And eventually, if the ocean acidifies, even just a small drop in pH, mas mahirapan yung mga animals na yun synthesize ng calcium carbonate na shells nila. Kasi calcium carbonate dissolves in acidic water. So, literally, ocean acidification makes them dissolve. Next slide. So, how then do we take action? As presented a while ago, I mentioned we can move on to the next slide, sorry. One of the things that we can do is to adapt and listen to indigenous practices. This is actually an approach that is fully supported by the UN Environment Program. Indigenous practices can help us form an idea of how to have a harmonious blend with our environment. It is important to realize that when we use resources from the environment, it's not an inherently bad thing. A lot of us may think na, when you chop down a tree, it's bad. But no, you have other species like beavers, you have ecosystem engineers like those species na also do the same thing. It's a matter of how much you do it and what scale you do it. There's a way of sustainable farming, there's a way of sustainable agriculture, there's a way of sustainable forestry. So pictured here sa taas, Banawe Rice Terraces, one of the most, I guess, sought after tourist destinations in the world. Why is that one picture that I included there as a form of adopting indigenous practices? No? As a form of sustainable agriculture, rice terraces are unique in a way na it conforms to the shape of the area around it. No? It doesn't change the geology around it. Remember what I said kanina na one of the big problems that we face is changes in land and sea use. That includes deforesting large patches of land to make mga patag na areas para makaplant tayo. When you make terraces like these, it conforms to the natural geology of the area para hindi niya kailangan i-flatten yung buong area. Another thing, rice terraces help minimize waste when it comes to things like water. You'll need less water to irrigate this entire area. Why? Pag may water na nanggaling dun sa taas, it slowly trickles down, right? As compared to our normal irrigation systems now na patag lahat, when there's seepage or when there's extra water, it just goes out to the side. And it eventually goes into a river, into our natural water bodies. As compared to this, it slowly trickles down along with the natural slope of the area. No? Another thing pictured sa baba, mangroves here. There are a lot of indigenous tribes, especially in the Palawan area, that value mangroves intensely. No? Why? Why do they value mangroves intensely? Because they know na if they protect these areas, they have a large bounty of fish that they can catch. If you're not familiar, mangroves, the root systems, parang corals siya na pwede tirahan ng mga fish. It helps them escape from predators. It's one of their breeding sites. So it's really, really important in terms of marine biodiversity. No? So it helps us form an idea of how to have a harmonious blend with our environment. Next slide, please. One problem, though, with indigenous practices is hindi siya masyado na-highlight in our modern society. Sorry, can we go back to the previous slide? Yun. Hindi siya masyado na mainstream in our modern world, no? But one way na we really emphasized in our presentation back in November 11 was through amplifying the voices of indigenous peoples. We're able to create pathways of dialogue. And I want you to take note of that word, dialogue, because that will be a common theme in my presentation now, no? And we can slowly change this idea na itong mga practices ng indigenous peoples is outdated na. Because we can apply this to our regular climate policies, climate programs, and other things like that. So next slide. So yun nga, that's what we presented in our November 11 presentation. Next slide, please. So I wanted to dive a little bit more in depth, propose more solutions than just what we presented since I was given more time to prepare for this. One thing that I want to tell everyone is that since me personally as an environmental scientist by craft, a lot of people in the academy are very much willing to participate, to help out in the problems. We have no shortage of solutions. Like, sobrang dami. Hindi problema yung wala tayong solusyon sa mga problema. It just needs a place. These people just need a place or an avenue to shine. I think one project that exemplifies this perfectly is a recent project I worked with NWRB. So this is a groundwater monitoring project. I worked with the Ateneo research team on this. So this groundwater monitoring project installed many groundwater monitoring wells around the country. This is one example. Ito sa Marikina to. So if you see here in this picture, medyo blurry siya, pero ano. We didn't use any fancy equipment for this. It was all made by students from electrical engineering. This was all microcontrollers, available sensors na online. Nothing fancy, no? The cost of this is much less than what we used to build groundwater monitoring wells with. So this just goes to show the power of collaboration. This goes to show the power of if people, these bright minds are given an avenue to shine, we're able to create solutions like this. No? So next slide, please. So another thing is to engage the community. Climate policies are only as effective as the community that engages in it. This is a picture of a field work that we did around the Marikina area, where we collaborated with the City Environmental Management Office. So communities are the first line of defense in terms of the protection, and they're also the ones most affected by disasters. When you have a climate policy or a climate project, pag hindi involved yung community mo, ano mangyayari? What will happen? Does anyone have any guesses? Let's say nag-implement ka ng project sa barangay, tapos walang nakaalam, or hindi sila involved dun sa planning, so they think that it's not relevant to them. What will happen to the project? To slowly fizzle out. Walang mangyayari. This is why I think engaging the community is very, very important. No? We can also move on to the next slide. So well-informed and engaged communities form the backbone of effective climate policy, not just in this sector, but also things like resource management and pollution. They are our front line, and therefore we must equip them with the necessary knowledge, necessary information, and necessary skills to deal with this information. And then when I say engage the community, a lot of people think na, ay, boring, seminar, magtotalk ka sa barangay, dadalhin niyo yung mga people from the environment office, magtotalk kayo sa barangay. No, that's not what engaging the community is, no? Next slide, please. Engaging the community can also work with environmental awareness campaigns, activities. This is a picture of a recent open water swim that I joined around the Verde Island Passage area, Lobo, Batangas. So in the swim, we were given the necessary information about the Verde Island Passage. You swimming out in the open water is a very intimate affair. You see fishes swimming around you, you see the coral reefs. So it's one way to really engage yourself in that mindset na, wow, this is something na is worth protecting, this is something na worth fighting for. So this is what I mean when you engage the community. Hindi lang seminars, hindi lang mga awareness campaigns. You also make projects like these. It doesn't even have to be limited to these. You can be more creative through things like showcasing art, showcasing mga shows, mga songs even. So next slide. Another thing that I want to emphasize is to engage different sectors. This is often one overlooked when it comes to creating climate policy because people often say, pag kunyari, may environmental issue, ano yung unang sinasabi ng mga tao? Ba't hindi kayo nakinig sa mga scientists? Yung unang sinasabi, di ba? But what I think that statement is missing is that we also need to engage different sectors in terms of this. Hindi lang puro data dapat. Hindi lang puro science dapat pinapakinggan. We need to engage things like the business sector, journalism, other sectors, even the arts. because this is all a collaborative effort. We all have different priorities, but through working together, we can all find a solution that not just settles on a compromise, but works for the benefit of all. Just an anecdotal thing. Currently sa amin, sa environmental science, no, when people graduate from the field, or from the field of study, there are some industries na people don't want to go into. I'm not gonna say the industries. I think you can probably already, like, there are people now who would rather not go into those industries because they're afraid that they're gonna compromise their values. They're gonna compromise what they've been working on their entire life. Kasi some, let's say, corporations are really known to be polluters, mga ganun. But I think I have a different perspective on that. Kasi when we ignore corporations like these na, ay, hindi yan maganda kaya hindi ako sasali sa kanila. That's not solving the problem eh. The most change you can do nga, I think in my humble opinion, when you go into corporations like these, you have the most capability to do your change. You can be that linchpin to get that corporation to go to a more sustainable route. Kahit na hindi agad-agad, it's a slow process, it's fine. But any progress is better than no progress. And we're talking about environmental change. Changes sometimes can be radical, and you really need a slow process in order to get that across, no? So I think when you talk about things like mga corporations, it's just, we should also think of them na we can go into these as a way to help them. Hindi lang just they're polluters, therefore I will not go into them. You have the most capability to do change. And therefore, I think we should try to engage ourselves with them. Kung hindi sila makinig, it's not our loss. We tried to engage with them. And it just goes to show that we want to build that connection. No? So, next slide. So, last thing that I want to emphasize na really, really important, and we'll tie all of these points together. One thing that we need to do is to have more interactive dialogue, like this. But just hindi lang interactive dialogue. Next slide, please. We need to have more interactive and specific dialogue. Conventions or like conferences like these are good. Yeah? I think we can all agree on that. Because it helps us connect with different people from different sectors. But we should also have more specific conversations on specific policies that we want to look at. Next slide, please. So there is no one-size-fits-all when it comes to making changes, not just in climate policy, but also in ecosystems, biodiversity change. Dialogue needs to be performed for different sectors. Sector-based discussions are good, but if we can pinpoint that discussion to be more specific, to be more tailor-made for a certain problem, a big problem that we're facing now, the better. For example, instead of talking about how agriculture is dwindling in our country because of things like climate effects, maybe we can talk about how invasive species have contributed to the decline in agriculture. Maybe we can talk about how the more persistent El Nino or the more persistent typhoons have contributed to this decline in our capability, no? And how do we address that given that specific context? Because I think that's important. There's no one-size-fits-all. That's mostly the problem when we talk about issues like this. Na we often think, okay, reclamation projects, therefore, instead of reclamation projects, dapat mangroves. Hindi yun ganun. We need to look at it in context, no? Because if you, while I'm in the topic of reclamation projects na nga, let's say, for example, you want to reclaim a certain piece of land. Often people will say, plant mangroves instead. Why are you reclaiming that land? But if mangroves aren't native to that area, you're only giving the environment a chance to foster another invasive species. If you're not familiar, trees can also be invasive, hindi lang plants. When trees are invasive, it means that they grow super fast as compared to their native counterparts na hindi nakaka-compete yung natural ecosystem. If mangroves aren't naturally present in the area, why will you plant mangroves there? There's different solutions to that problem. If, for example, instead of mangroves, you notice in the data na previously maraming mga seagrass beds, then there, you have a more specific solution. But that won't hold for other areas as well, because maybe some other areas talagang may mangroves dun. Diba? So that's where specific conversations need to be done. Next slide, please. So the problems facing the conservation of flora aren't applicable to all the conservation problems of fauna. Maybe there are some similarities, but our approach needs to be more targeted than just similarities. Because what I've learned working in or looking at things like mga climate change issues is that many climate change issues are localized in a sense na the effects of one area are the same as the effects of another. Maybe the data says 2 degrees increase in temperature, surface temperature levels. But when you look at the localized data, hindi siya pantay. Because that 2 degrees, remember when we talk about data, is that 2 degrees that we're talking about is generalized, averaged all around the world. Hindi siya ibig sabihin 2 degrees sa Amerika, 2 degrees dito sa Pilipinas. When we talk about sea level rise, it's the same thing. When they say 10 centimeter increase, it's not the same, let's say, 10 centimeter increase sa Manila Bay and hindi siya the same as 10 centimeter increase sa Mindanao area, right? It's not the same. There's localized effects, there's localized impacts that you need to account for. And therefore, our approach needs to be targeted in this way. So that's it for my presentation. I hope you've taken quite a lot from it. May Q&A portion ba to? Pero yun, thank you very much. And since we are responsible information givers here, we can just flash the references that I used for this presentation real quick. Yes, next slide. Dalawang slide yun. And yay. Yun. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Tan. So I guess if the people here in the room have any questions, we can collect them and we can have them collected by our secretariat so we can pass them on to Mr. Tan. So moving forward, our journey into the key pillars of climate action continues. Joining us today is Ms. Christine Hodloman, the Director of Programs and Development of Agria. Her dedication to addressing food security challenges and fostering sustainable agriculture is nothing short of inspiring. Despite the constraints of time, Ms. Hodloman has shared her insights through a pre-recorded message. Let us extend a warm welcome to Ms. Christine Hodloman.
Good day, everyone, especially to our distinguished leaders for development. I am Christine Hodloman of Agria Foundation. I came from a family of farmers. I work with farmers every day, and I am a farmer myself. So this specific topic in session on food security is both a professional and personal mission to me. And I am honored and grateful here today to be speaking with you and sharing with you the collective output of our team during the last ClimaTalks held earlier this November. First, let me give you a situationer of our agriculture sector, and let's start where all of us can relate, no? Eating. Currently, our population in the Philippines is exponentially growing. We are currently at 180 million Filipinos, and this is actually the main business, no, and goal of the agriculture sector, to feed this growing population every day, 3 times a day. And I would like to share with you this Polish proverb. It says that when the farmer is poor, so is the whole nation. And we can actually feel this here in the Philippines. Actually, our farmers are aging. Average age sa atin dito sa Pilipinas ay 57 years old. So compared sa ibang bansa, no, for example, sa US, it's 58, and sa South Africa, it's 62. And yung mga kabataan natin, ay nawawala na ng interest sa agriculture. The youth are losing interest in engaging in the agriculture sector. So imagine, with the aging farmer population and the youth having little to no interest in agriculture, imagine 10 to 20 years from now, what will the future of our food security will look like? So mainly, no, mag-i-import tayo from other countries, or how can we improve more on the current resources? No, the Philippines is such a beautiful country, full of resources. How can we maximize and tap on that in a sustainable and environment-friendly way? This one sharing with you the current economic situation of our agricultural workforce. Farmers and fisher folks, our food producers are actually the poorest in the Philippines. No, they are always below the poverty line, the poverty threshold, and there's somehow a disconnect and irony on that because these are the people who are feeding the nation, but somehow they remain to be the poorest and the hungriest. The agriculture sector is also losing billions of pesos by climate-related challenges. In 2024, the Philippines will face many challenges because of El Nino. Temperatures are expected to rise, leading to heat waves and prolonged dry periods. This can lead to reduced water supplies, impacting agriculture and water availability. Extreme weather events such as typhoons may also intensify during this period. The State Weather Bureau, or our Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration, or PAG-ASA, has predicted reduced rainfall in most parts of the country starting in October of this year due to the current mild El Nino phenomenon in the tropical Pacific Ocean. PAG-ASA advised it is likely to become a severe El Nino by the end of 2023, with below average rainfall conditions likely to continue until next year. In the first quarter of 2024, the most severe effects of El Nino are expected, with precipitation likely to be below average in most parts of the country. The Philippines is also the most disaster risk and most vulnerable country to the effects of climate change. The country also ranks third and fourth among countries exposed to seasonal events and among countries greatly affected by extreme weather events. Largely affected by climate change-related disasters is the agriculture sector. The agriculture sector damages are attributed to 70% to typhoons, 18% to droughts, and 5% floods. The mean annual typhoon-related agriculture damages are estimated at $136 million. So, in the screen right here, this is the damage in the agriculture sector brought about by Typhoon Odette. It's about 8.4 billion pesos. And the Philippines, being an archipelagic country, no, we are made up of 7,000 islands. So we are at risk because we are an island nation. We are at risk on the effects of all climate-related challenges. Specific, no, lalong-lalo na sa ating agriculture sector. So during our group work in the ClimaTalks event, we made up a persona. This persona is Lolo Canin. Lolo Canin is a 57 years old rice farmer in rural Philippines. He is experiencing, like all other farmers in the Philippines, the brunt of all the economic and climate-related challenges in his livelihood in the agriculture sector. Our main question and challenge on contributing to improving the life of Lolo Canin would be, how can we future-proof the agri-livelihood of farmers given the many economic and climate-related challenges facing them today? So this is a very important question, especially if you are a development worker in agriculture like me, a daughter of a farmer like me, and a farmer like myself. And this is a question that millions of Filipino farmers would like an answer to. This is the collective output of our team. We imagined a better future for Lolo Canin and many farmers like him. What can contribute to their progress would be incentivizing a future-proof and climate-resilient food systems. We have imagined this in the form of a cooperative, the Sibol Cooperative. This cooperative offers members a future-proof package, so when farmers retire, they will worry less about their future. But there are actually 3 commitments they should sign up for to have these incentives. First, they should actually practice regenerative agriculture as a climate-resilient agriculture system. The second one, they should engage in continuous learning and capacity building focused on 2 areas. Innovation, no, not just in innovation by means of technology, but also innovations by means of indigenous knowledge, for example. And then the next one is finance incentive, which is the bread and butter of the agriculture sector. Without financing, without money, there would be no driver for the agricultural workforce and agriculture activities. And the last one and the most important one, and this can, we hope, contribute to address the decreasing younger generation engagement in agriculture, would be the future-centric incentive, which offers scholarships and finance capital for the youth in agriculture. But as you look into the picture, actually Lolo Kanin and Butil are related. So this is an intergenerational incentivizing future-proof package. So this means we envision Lolo Kanin, in order to complete the 3 steps commitment, Lolo Kanin should endorse someone from his family to take on his farm, to take on agriculture, and of course, take on the 3 commitments, the 3 steps, which can lead to a future-proof and climate-resilient food systems. Let's look deeper into our incentivizing a future-proof and climate-resilient food systems. Actually, as you can see, we have meaning. We have meaning for each of the 3 steps. The first one, the regenerative agriculture as a climate-resilient agriculture system, we hope that it can contribute to a nature-positive production. So this is aligned to the United Nations Food Systems 5 action tracks. Regenerative agriculture is actually more than sustainable agriculture or organic agriculture. It's a bigger umbrella that hopes and main goal is to bring back soil health. So I would like to dig deeper into the second one, which is the continuous learning and capacity building focused on 2 areas. First is innovation, and the second one is finance incentives. And we hope that this could contribute to the action track on equitable livelihoods in the United Nations Food Systems Action Track. So what we mean here by equitable livelihoods is to boost the opportunities and capacities of farmers like Lolo Kanin through more equitable distribution of resources, humane and dignified work in the agricultural workforce, and this can actually be achieved through innovation and more finance incentives. And the third and last one, but we really see the most important one, is the future-centric incentive, which we hope to provide scholarships and finance capital for youth in agriculture. So this can contribute to the action track on food systems resilience. What we mean here by future-centric is, as I have shared earlier, the young generation of today, the youth of today, has little to no interest in the agriculture workforce. And as you can see in our presentation, Lolo Kanin and Butil, they're actually related. So it's a form of intergenerational agriculture system, agriculture workforce, their family. So food system resilience, we hope that someone from the family of Lolo Kanin can actually take on and improve the farm of Lolo Kanin, and that will be Butil, his grandson. And Butil, to really do well on the farm, the family farm, will need continuous learning and maybe agriculture scholarships for his future, so that he can learn not just the knowledge and the skills, but also the leadership to manage the farm well, so that it can be also future-proof and climate resilient. So this is on our food systems resilience track. And to end the presentation, I would like to summarize the collective output our team has. Ensuring our food security through nature-positive production, equitable and humane livelihoods, and resilient food systems can be our collective climate action that can start with being mindful of our food and being more appreciative of our food producers like Lolo Kanin. Thank you so much for your time and for listening, and daghang salamat.
Thank you, Ms. Odloman. Now, let's turn to stakeholder engagement. Joining us today is Mr. Ralph Eric Bernardo, Circle Manager of Mayumo Rover Scouts. Mr. Bernardo has been actively involved in fostering collaboration and engagement within communities. Today, he brings his wealth of experience to shed light on the significance of involving stakeholders in our collective journey towards climate resilience. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Ralph Eric Bernardo to share his insights.
Isang mayumong umaga po sa ating lahat. Mayumo, coming from our municipality, San Miguel de Mayumo, meaning sweet. So by that, I'm saying a sweet morning po sa inyong lahat. I'm Ralph Bernardo, again, from the municipality of San Miguel in Bulacan. I'm a part of Boy Scouts of the Philippines, but as well as Rotaract of Rotary. So, salamat po. Sige po. For this morning po, I was tasked to discuss the output of our group with regards to the importance of stakeholder engagement in our battle against climate change. So, ito po yung group namin last November 11. So, to start, let me explain our point of view as our team tried to answer the task at hand last November 11. This is Mia, as you can see. She's a native of Daram in the province of Samar. As you can see, she's still young, still in the early years of her high school. So, as we answer the problem given to us, it must be in the point of view of Mia, sa punto de vista dapat ni Mia. So, during our groupings then, fortunately, one of my groupmates was able to list down, during her interview with Mia, she was able to list down many of the things that bothered her as she looks towards the future. First is education. With Daram being an island, it is quite hard for her to pursue higher studies. This is the reality for many of the youth there. That's why the number of people who have finished college or high school is quite low. Second is financial stability of her family. With fishing as the main source of income in the island, the changing climate has made a huge impact on the catch of the locals. This has highly affected her family as they struggle with many things. And third, are natural disasters. The island is highly vulnerable to many natural disasters, and as said by Mia, as the years go by, these disasters are becoming more frequent and deadlier. She is afraid with their safety during these times because of the state of their house, which is a mix of concrete and other makeshift materials. Next slide. Now, upon assessing the points brought by Mia, we have come up with this jigsaw puzzle in relation to the role of stakeholders in the public and private sector in addressing these challenges magnified by our changing climate. The jigsaw puzzle genuinely states kapit bisig, or arms to arms. For K, we said, kapit bisig ang gobyerno at lahat ng sektor ng lipunan. For A, aksyon mula sa mga napapanahong datos. For P, paggawa at pagpapaunlad ng mga polisiya. For I, estratehikong komunikasyon. For T, training para sa komunidad. For B, balancing edukasyon para sa lahat. For I, infrastruktura laban sa nagbabagong klima. For S, sustainable social enterprise para sa komunidad. For I, integration, monitoring, feedback, and review para sa mga programa. And for G, grassroots mobilization upang mapabilis ang implementasyon ng mga programa at polisiya. Again, spelling out kapit-bisig. Now, it is evident that in order for us to be able to make meaningful change happen in our conquest against climate change, we will need all hands on deck. Next slide. The Philippine National Adaptation Plan ingeniously laid out many of the important things that many of our stakeholders can act upon. And as I've said, the Philippine National Adaptation Plan, or our overall plan against climate change, needs all hands on deck. We need you. Next slide. To make it more specific, the academe and other research institutions, I have outlined some, but I know that there are lots more that the following sectors can do for us to be able to address the changing climate. For the academe and research institutions, first is the facilitation of innovation. The combination of technical expertise, comprehensive methodologies, and diverse resources in the academia and research institutions creates an environment conducive to innovation and the development of novel ideas that will create sustainable solutions against climate change. Scientific rigor and access to resources. Professionals in these institutions maintain scientific rigor and benefit from extensive access to private and public libraries and other resources that facilitates the cross-pollination of ideas and fostering new perspectives, thus making them important in this fight. Technical expertise and support. The academe and other research institutions serves as hubs for concentrated technical expertise, offering valuable support to sustainable ideas. Next slide. Local organizations, such as many of us are part of, gives a deeper understanding of local context. Local community organizations possesses a profound understanding of local context through close observances and relationships with local establishments and constituents, as also uttered by the first speaker, Mr. Nigel. Improve retrofitting of solutions. This deep understanding enables a more effective retrofitting of solutions and technologies as local experiences and concerns are taken into consideration. All these are relevant as we look for sustainable solutions that will address the roots of climate change. For the private sector, next slide. For the private sector, we have the wealth of experience and funding that contributes significant experience, practical knowledge, and funding to our sustainable initiatives. Continuous development and in approaches and technologies. Industry players, as we know, are consistently evolving their approaches, technologies, and solutions to align with sustainable consumer demands and reduce operational costs. Immediate application of sustainable methods. New methods for sustainable productions can be promptly retrofitted and applied to company operations, ensuring quick integration of sustainable practices. Mutual benefit for consumers and industry. The symbiotic relationship between consumers and industry players create a cycle of innovation and positive change, fostering a mutually beneficial environment for sustainability. And fifth, lasting sustainable impact. Consumers and industry players collectively contribute to a lasting sustainable impact through the ongoing implementation of improved practices and technologies. And last, but definitely not the least, the government. The government. resource allocation and funding. Our government can allocate resources and provide funding to support initiatives, research, and projects aimed at mitigating climate change, enhancing the effectiveness of the stakeholders. Coordination and collaboration. Government participation fosters coordination and collaboration among various stakeholders, ensuring a unified approach in addressing climate change issues. Public awareness and education. Government involvement allows for the implementation of public awareness campaigns and educational programs, promoting understanding and active participation in climate change initiatives among citizens and stakeholders. Policy implementation and regulation. Governments play a crucial role, a very crucial role indeed, in creating and enforcing rules and policies and regulations that guide stakeholders towards sustainable practices and behaviors. Legal framework for accountability. This is very important. Establishing a legal framework holds stakeholders accountable for their environmental impact, encouraging responsible practices and discouraging harmful activities. Having discussed all of this, Ma'am and Sirs, from the bottom of our hearts, we say, we need you. Kailangan po namin kayo, kailangan po namin ng gabay at suporta ng lahat ng sektor upang makagawa tayo ng nagkakaisang hanay laban sa nagbabagong klima. And as I end, I leave you with this quote attributed to the great Aubrey Hepburn. Last slide. To end, as we go on with our lives, it is important to realize that we have two hands. One is for helping others, and the other is for helping other people. Maraming salamat po at isang makakalikasang araw po sa ating lahat.
Our heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Bernardo and to the youth representatives for sharing the voices and visions for a sustainable future. Your dedication is truly inspiring. We would also like to acknowledge the presence of the representative of Albay, Mr. Joey Salceda. Thank you very much for your unwavering support towards climate action and giving time to listen to the voices of the youth. Thank you very much, sir. So now, as we conclude this event, we are also honored to introduce Undersecretary with that, sir, we maybe also invite Representative Salceda to give a very quick message to the youth present here today. So Representative Salceda is also a champion for climate change and disaster resiliency. So his support here to our youth today is very important for us. So thank you very much, sir. And we'd like to invite you here on stage, then, sir.
Good morning to everyone. Nakakapatawa ng puso na patuloy po ang ating our efforts to fight climate change, both its impacts and its causes. So both climate change mitigation as well as climate change adaptation. Nakikita ko na there's greater focus towards mitigation because it really helps in terms of global sustainability. But nonetheless, on the part of the Philippines, the primacy of adaptation because we are disproportionate share of the risk of climate change because of our geographic location and because of our, which undermines the sustainability of our effort to reduce poverty as well as provide future generations a platform to pursue the achievement of their potential as well as of their dreams. So lahat naman itong ginagawa natin dito, hindi naman ito para sa atin, kundi para ito sa mga susunod na henerasyon kasi para saan pa naman ito. So ang kagandahan nito ay yung mga sinasabi natin future generation ay naririto na kasama natin. Siyempre, si NYC Sir Cardema at siyempre yung namumuno po ng Climate Change Commission, si Secretary Bore. So, papasalamat po ako na yung kabataan ay engaged kagad. Kasi yung ginagawa naman po talaga sa climate change is it's all about the future. It's about a world that is fair to the poor and fair to the future. At the end of the day, it's the fairness of our global arrangements that essentially prevent countries such as the Philippines. Pero dapat hindi ito tinatanggap as something that is not, that cannot be changed or that we cannot fight. So the fight goes on both in the UNFCCC, in the Conference of Parties. Siguro, kailangan ko talagang bumalik sa pag-aaral kasi masyado po akong na-imbelto sa paghanap ng pera para sa gobyerno kasi as the chairman of the second committee of Congress, which is House Ways and Means, to ensure the resource mobilization for the national project we call Philippines. So it is very necessary that we have the means and the ways para po ma-achieve po ng country natin. At isa sa mga sagabal po niyan ay ang epekto po ng climate change sa pang-araw-araw, lalong-lalo na sa mga ordinaryong tao. So we have to forge a future on the anvil of the dreams of our youth. Kaya maganda na ma-articulate po kung ano talaga ang I call it the socially desirable desire, the socially desirable and the desirably ambition of our youth. So, itong mga pagkakataon to ay hindi natin dapat palampasin na lagi at lagi gagamitin natin na para yung boses ng kabataan ay mapasok po sa national agenda. Kahit nung ako po yung governor, kung saan pinasimulan namin yung Climate Change Academy, kaso talaga kahit anong klaseng institutionalization, hindi ko talaga tumatagal dahil nung mag-graduate na ako, ay nawala. So we had the local climate change, it's called the LCCAD, which essentially goes around the country. So we had some kind of advocacy. But the institutions, at the end of the day, must be built in the hearts and minds of the people. Dapat nasa puso ng tao para hindi mawala. Institutionalization is very critical. Kasi kahit meeting tayo ng meeting, pero pag uwi ninyo, mawawala din. Wala mangyayari sa atin. So ang importante po para sa akin talagang hindi lang yung actualization o yung pagsasabuhay ng ng ating pong mga kung ano mga napag-usapan natin, kundi na ito ay maging batas, maipaloob po sa programa ng NYC, tsaka CCC, at tsaka sa bawat institusyon ng gobyerno, na ito ay mabigyan ng pondo ng Kongreso, na lahat po ng sektor ng gobyerno. Kasi sayang naman yung sayang naman yung mga ganitong pagkakataon kung hindi rin naman po talaga if we cannot move forward with this agenda for change, for a better future. So beyond government, we must follow the whole of nation approach. So every sector, especially the private sector, You know, if you look at our GDP, government accounts for only less than 20%. 80% is really private. So, kung hindi natin i-mobilize ang private sector, kasi nasa kanila ang pera, baka, at kung sila mismo po ay na ate pong maging partner, so kailangan din natin maging kasama lahat ng sektor, lalong-lalo ng boses ng mahihirap, boses po ng mga senior citizens, boses po ng kabataan, boses po, lahat ng boses po. All voices should find their footprint in the way we manage our effort towards carbon neutrality, as well as, of course, kasi carbon neutrality is just a means to an end. Means lang yan para maging sustainable po. Ang talagang pinaglalaban natin is a better future for the Philippines. Talaga ang nilalaban natin. Sa makikipaglaban ulit si Secretary Bore sa Dubai, sa COP. So sana may kabataan na kasama si Bore para pwede kayo mag-ingay doon. Kasi dati ang pinakamaingay pong delegado doon ay puro taga-Pilipinas. Kaya papasalamat ako, nandito kayo lahat. Sana sa puso ninyo na sana na may kabutihan na so nawawalan ako ng words kasi nga po masyado akong nakapokus sa pera ng gobyerno kasi ang konti-konti. So, hindi ko alam kung paano pagbabayarin ng mga mayayaman ng tamang buwis. Daming smuggler, daming tax evader. So, di naman masingil. So, I think at the end of the day, I'll just leave you a few things too for our nation. Number one, the single biggest constraint to the achievement of the Filipino dream, for our rightful place in the universe, is our inability to collect the right taxes from the rich. And number two, hindi talaga. Kasi otherwise, yung mga ganito dapat punong-puno ng tao, hindi lang yung mga ilan-ilang kasi wala namang budget ang CCC. So ilan lang yung mababayaran. Pero kung gusto talaga natin ma-mobilize ang buong bansa, kailangan po ng resource. Ma-mobilize mo rin yung resources. At saka, pangalawa, kailangan isaisip natin na the whole concept of government is to prompt positive consequences on the lives of ordinary people. Nothing else. The only reason there is government, because we want to reduce poverty. That's the only reason. Any government that cannot reduce poverty, any government that cannot have peace, that can ensure that the dreams as well as the aspirations and the potential of our youth can be achieved, doesn't deserve to be. So yun lang dalawang iiwanan ko sa inyo because I want to disturb the way you imagine, kasi we have to reimagine this nation once again. So sa inyo pong lahat, pasensya na po. Sa susunod po, bigyan niyo ako ng tamang oras para yung speech ko po hindi po pa talon-talon, pero at least I'm coming from my heart. I can leave you with that message. Lastly, kasama niyo po ako sa laban na to.
How do we walk without standing? How do we fly without taking a leap?
Thank you very much, Representative Joy Salceda. Before we leave the room, sir, may we also invite you back on stage, and also maybe also invite Secretary Borges so we can give a simple token as an appreciation for your support for today's event. Representative Joyce Salceda, champion again for climate change action and disaster risk resilience.
How do we walk without standing?
Invite Undersecretary Ronald Cardema also to join in the photo opportunity together with Representative Joyce Salceda and Secretary Robert E.A. Borgo.
How do we swim? How do we walk? How do we fly? How do we live? Without caring, without fighting.
Sir, may we also invite our youth representatives who presented and who has delivered a speech also to here on stage so we can show our support again for the government and the youth support towards climate action. So again, may we call on stage Mr. Lester Deliosa, Mr. Nigel Anthony Tan, and Mr. Ralph Eric Bernardo.
How do we walk without standing? How do we fly without taking a leap? How do we live without caring, without fighting, without rising up?
May we also invite our guests to please move towards the front of the stage so we can also take a photo opportunity with all the participants in the room today. So may we invite everyone to please stand so we can also have a photo opportunity with everyone. So our photographers will be on stage so we can take a group photo to remember this special day today.
How do we fly without taking a leap? How do we live without caring, without fighting, without rising up?
So our photographers are here already on stage, so we invite everyone to please.
Without caring, without fighting, without rising up.
So we'll be just taking another group photo, and then we'll also ask our guests to please to go on stage.
We gotta rise up.
Open your eyes and you realize each day, each hour, each second the world slowly dies and you the wakes before it's too late. We gotta rise, we gotta rise.
What about us? What about tomorrow?
Open your eyes and you
So may we also
realize.
request our photographers to please come up on stage and our guests to please move for
every drop of
the
water
front of
we
the
use,
stage.
every cheat that we lose, there's really no excuse, we gotta pay a dues.
How do we swim without diving in? How do we walk without standing?
Yes, po. So for our guests, we'll go move down on the stage. So our photographer will be here, so we can take a group photo with all the participants in the room today. To our youth representatives, may we take this opportunity to move forward so we can compress towards the front of the stage.
We gotta rise up.
Everyone,
Open your eyes
please
and
give
you
us your
realize
biggest
each
smile.
Day, each hour, each second the world slowly dies and you the wakes before it's too late.
Biggest
We gotta
smile.
rise,
1,
we
2,
gotta
3.
rise.
Smile.
What about us? What about
Open
tomorrow?
your eyes and you realize.
One more photo. 1, 2, 3. Climate action.
And the world they get to know.
For every drop
Wave
of
our
water
hand.
we use, every cheat that we lose, there's really no excuse, we gotta pay a dues.
How do we swim without diving in? How do we walk without standing?
Thank you very much for everyone's participation. We may now head back to your seats.
Without rising up.
Representative Joey Salcedo, thank you very much for gracing our event today. So again, having Representative Joey Salcedo gracing our event today underscores the significance of the government's backing for the younger generation and fostering a positive environment for youth initiatives towards climate actions. Sir, thank you very much again for your valuable support to the youth and towards climate action. Everyone, let us give Representative Salcedo again a warm round of applause. So at this point, may we request everyone to please take your seats. So we would also conclude today's event with another special guest for today. So now, as we conclude this event, we are very honored to introduce Undersecretary Ronald Cardema, the chairperson and the CEO of the National Youth Commission. His leadership and an experience in empowering the youth is invaluable. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Undersecretary Ronald Cardema for his closing remarks.
How do we walk without standing? How do we fly without taking the lead?
Good morning to all of you, and we would like to thank again the presence of Congressman Joey Salceda, our partner in disaster preparedness and in climate change advocacy. Palakpakan po uli natin, Congressman Joey Salceda. So nagpapasalamat po tayo sa Climate Change Commission led by Secretary Robert Borge and sa ating mga youth leaders who are all present here. Sa statement, opening statement ni Lester Deliosa, palakpakan natin. Sa presentations ni Nigel Tan, Christine Judloman, and Ralph Eric Bernardo, you know, I'm very thankful that I was invited here. Sa katotohanan, I attend mga 5 to 6 events every day. Talagang nakakapagod. Bakit? Lahat ng issue ng Pilipino, issue rin ng kabataang Pilipino yan. Dahil lahat ng issue sa ating bansa, very idealistic ang ating mga kabataan, gustong baguhin, kaya nagiging issue. Katulad ng sa climate change nandito, ang ating mga youth leaders. Your event today is not only about climate change. It is also about the advocacies of the youth sector. Dito sa event nyo today, nung napakinggan ko sina Lester, sina Nigel, sina Ralph, naalala ko yung mga advocacies ko nung bata pa ako. I was a BS Biology student in UP Los Baños. Yan ang pinakamataas kong grade, Biology and Agriculture. Ang grade ko nung high school sa Los Baños for Biology and Agriculture, 99 and 98. Yung ibang subject, mababa na. Pero when it comes to Biology and Agriculture, Food Security, talagang yun yung mga matataas kong subjects. And I like the advocacy also of Ralph regarding the Boy Scouts because sa NYC, nung sinabi ng ating Pangulo na ibabalik yung ROTC, sinabi namin kung pwede pati yung Boy Scout, Girl Scout going mandatory sa elementary. Kasi bakit? Why do you need to mobilize the Filipino youth when they are in college na? Baka pwedeng bata pa lang, they are being developed towards nation building na agad. Diba? So sa ating marami tayong advocacy. And nung ako ay nasa Los Baños, UP Los Baños, member ako ng Kabataan Party List. Hindi ko yata nasabi yun sa Member ako ng Kabataan Party List and League of Filipino Students. When I was a member of this leftist movement in UP, lahat na lang ng pwedeng sinisi namin sa gobyerno. Lahat ng issue ng Pilipinas, pwede mo actually isisi sa gobyerno. Kapag ganun ka idealistic, member ka pa lalo ng isang organization na very critical about the government. Pero nung napunta ako sa government, na-realize ko hindi kasalanan lahat ng government. For example, sa advocacy ng NYC about teenage pregnancy and AIDS, pare magkano yung nilaan na budget ng gobyerno dun sa advocacy na yun na NYC? Zero. Wala kahit piso. Pero we are mandated to go to the youth sector and talk about these issues of the country. Wala talaga kahit piso eh. Kahit panggawa ng leaflet, wala. Etong ating mga SEAP ambassadors, mga youth ambassadors natin na ipapadala sa Southeast Asian countries in the next few weeks. They are part of the NYC law na we are supervising them. Pare, magkano yung budget na nila ng gobyerno sa NYC for a mandated task na nasa batas for them? Zero rin. Isinisingit lang namin talaga sila sa iba't ibang pwede namin pagkuha ng office budget para lang magawa yung tasking na yon ng gobyerno sa amin. Imagine, yung tasking namin na isupervise yung 400,000 na SK, sangguniang kabataan leaders ng bansa. Paano namin gagawin yon? Ang sasakyan ng NYC, tatatlo. Ang budget namin, for example, for capital outlay, 8 million. Pambili ng pandagdag, ika-4 na sasakyan, pambili ng computers, para dun sa mga web portal ng SK. Yun lang ang budget ng National Youth Commission. The only reason, baka alam nyo yung National Youth Commission, because active kami sa advocacy. Kahit walang kapera-pera yung National Youth Commission, nag-a-active kami sa iba't ibang activities ninyo, kahit piso wala talaga kaming panggastos at pang-participate. Yun ang advocacy namin. Buti nandyan si Congressman Salceda, ini-explain niya, ang hirap mag-budget sa mga agencies. Diba? But yung idealism, yung mga advocacy ng kabataan Pilipino, sometimes kahit wala kang pera, pero you advocate for that, nagtataguyod yung advocacy. Regarding disaster preparedness and climate change, 10 years ago, nagkaroon ng Typhoon Yolanda. I was still in UP Diliman that time, 2013. Wala naman ako magawa, wala naman ako sa gobyerno. Pero nung nakita ko yung nangyari doon, yung ginawa ng Typhoon Yolanda sa ating bansa, siguro for 3 days, gumawa ako ng video. Lahat ng photos regarding Typhoon Yolanda, kinolekta ko and ginawan ko ng video clip to raise awareness sa mga kapwa kabataan noon regarding climate change and regarding disaster preparedness. I would like to show you a video I made 10 years ago when I was still in UP Diliman.
sarili lamang. Walang sino man ang namamatay para sa sarili lamang. Tayong lahat ay may pananagutan sa isa't isa. Tayong lahat ay tinipon ng Diyos na kapiling niya. Sa ating pagmamahalan at paglilingkod sa kanino man, tayo ay nagdadala ng balita ng kaligtasan. Tayong lahat ay may pananagutan sa isa't isa. Tayong lahat ay tinipon ng Diyos na kapiling niya. Sabay-sabay ng mag-aapitan ng mga bansa. Tayo'y tinusin ng Panginoon bilang mga anak. Ay magmahal at may pagkakasama sa isa't isa. Ay magmahal at tinipon ng Diyos na mahal ko sa inyo. Sabay-sabay ng mag-aawitan ng mga bansa. Tayo'y sinusay ng Panginoon bilang mga anak. Ay magmahal at magkakasama sa isa.
So I made that video 10 years ago, November 2013. I was still in UP Diliman. Naalala ko kung paano ko ginawa yung video na yan. Talagang nakita ko sa balita yung epekto ng Typhoon Yolanda. Nanghiram ako ng laptop sa underclass ko. ROTC Corps Commander kasi ako sa UP Diliman. Nakatira ako sa barracks para libre. Nanghiram lang ako ng laptop. Siguro for the entire weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, nagko-collect lang ako ng photos about Typhoon Yolanda. Then ginawa ko ang ganyang video. Pinatong ko kapag sinabing naiiyak dun sa kanta, yung umiiyak yung inano ko, just to raise awareness sa kabataang Pilipino. Bakit? Sa sobrang daming kabataang Pilipino sa ating bansa, kapag hindi mo alam na nangyari yan sa kapwa mo kabataan, hindi mo alam na experience yan ng kapwa mo Pilipino, wala kang pakialam. Yung mga excesses mo sa buhay, di ba? Anong ginagawa mo bilang kabataan Pilipino? Nagiinom every week? Gumigimik? Hindi mo alam, nangyayari yan sa iyong kapwa kabataan Pilipino o kapwa Pilipino. Every month. Hindi lang ganyang ka-intense yung bagyo. Pero ang bagyo sa Pilipinas, alphabet, di ba? A to Z ang pangalan, lumalampas paminsan. Yung epekto, katulad recently sa Northern Samar, tinext ako ng governor, grabe yung effect doon ng typhoon. So nung ginagawa ko yung video na yan, that is just parang advocacy lang sa puso ko. Wala naman akong org na related sa disaster preparedness. Yun lang, UPROTC. When I was making this, alam nyo, hirap na hirap kami sa buhay nun. Kaya ako nag-CAT, nag-ROTC sa UP Los Baños at UP Diliman para libre yung tirahan sa UP. No, when I was in Laguna, nakalimang lipat kami ng bahay. Bakit? Wala kaming bahay. Nagre-rent lang kami, hindi ng apartment, nagre-rent kami ng kwarto. Nandun yung nanay ko, lola ko, sister ko. When I was in UP Diliman, yung sister ko, younger sister ko, nag-aaral na sa Philippine Science High School sa Diliman. Doon ako nagtatanghalian sa Philippine Science High School kahit taga-UP Diliman na ako. Kasi libre yung pagkain ng sister ko doon, sobra-sobra. Doon ako kumakain. Ganun kami kahirap. But yung mga gantong advocacy, lumalabas na lang sa sarili mo and naniniwala tayo na kailangan mo i-spread yung ganitong information sa kapwa mo kabataan, sa kapwa mo Pilipino, para ma-realize nila yung nangyayaring ganito sa ating bansa. This year alone, I attended 3 events na laging binabanggit yung sa climate change. I attended last April a youth summit in the United Nations. Kasama ko puro youth ministers. And ang pressing issue na nire-raise doon, climate change. When I attended the ASEAN, merong closed door doon, yung mga presidente tsaka head of states. Yung presidente natin, nagsama lang ng 3. Bawal media, 3 staff. Naisama ako doon sa closed door. Puro head of states sa Asia Pacific. Head rin ng Asian Development Bank, IMF, kasama rin nila. 2 lang issue na tinakel nila. Recovery from COVID and climate change. Diba? Umattend rin ako dito sa Asian Youth Council, yung samahan ng mga NYC chairman tsaka youth minister sa Asia Pacific. Vice President ako ng Asian Youth Council. Climate change pa rin. Ito yung pinagtataka ko. Bakit yung mga counterpart natin na youth organizations sa iba't ibang bansa, for example, sa China, Singapore, South Korea, kapag kausap ko sila, sinasabi nila, minomobilize nila ang kanilang kabataan for disaster preparedness. Kasi daw yung bagyo, pagkadaan sa Pilipinas, pumupunta sa kanila. Mapapaisip ka. Sa Pilipinas, hindi masyadong nagpe-prepare. Tayo pala yung direct na dinadaanan ng mga bagyo bago pumunta sa kanila. Kaya ako nagagalak dito sa gathering nyo na ito at na-invite ako ni Secretary Borge. Because dito sa mga bagong elected nating SK officials, 400,000 of them, nag-announce ako last week. Sabi ko, bawal na yung paulit-ulit na basketball, liga ng basketball, beauty contest, at plate number ng bahay. Wala na bang creative at more important advocacy ang kabataan Pilipino kung hindi liga, beauty contest, saka yung plate number ng bahay? Dahil dito, na-invite nyo ako dito, the NYC and DILG will be having a National Youth Convention of 1,800 SK Federation Presidents on December 7, 8, 9, 10, and I will be getting your names and contact numbers from the Climate Change Commission led by Secretary Borge. I will bring you to Baguio to be in front of those 1,800 SK provincial, city, and municipal presidents, so that you can talk to your fellow youth and raise to them this very important advocacy, not only from the youth sector, not only for our country, but for the entire humanity. Dapat ma-realize nila ang importansya ng ganitong climate change and disaster preparedness advocacy bilang mga youth leaders, elected youth leaders ng bansa. Pag hindi nyo sinabi yun sa kanila, sa unang buwan nila na nagtatrabaho sila bilang SK, makakalimutan na nila yung mga ganitong advocacy. Kasi uutusan na sila ng barangay chairman, ng mayor, kung ano, activity sa kanilang bayan. But on their first week as SK leaders of the country, we will bring you to that convention. You will talk to them, our resource persons here, about your advocacies, our advocacies about climate change, and how all these SK presidents of the country will be instruments in advocating for your advocacy. So nagpapasalamat kami sa Climate Change Commission, and kami sa NYC, kahit wala talaga kaming ka-budget, we will partner with the Secretary Borge, the Climate Change Commission, and all of you, youth advocates here, dahil napaka-importante nito. Hindi natin pwede sabihin na buti na lang sa Leyte nangyari yan. Hindi sa amin sa Iloilo, hindi sa amin sa Davao, hindi sa amin sa Zamboanga. Gusto nyo ba pag kayo ang tinamaan ng ganitong bagyo sa inyong lugar, ganun na lang sasabihin ng kapwa nyo Pilipino, buti na lang sa kanila nangyari, hindi sa atin. We should be focused in nation building and in spreading this advocacy regarding climate change and disaster preparedness so that all Filipino youth ay maging tunay na pag-asa ng bayan. Alam nyo, kinokontest ko yung sinabi ng ating pambansang bayani. Taga-Kalamba ako, taga doon ng ating pambansang bayani, ang kabataan ng pag-asa ng bayan. Minsan pag naririnig ko, sinasabi ng politiko, ang kabataan ng pag-asa ng bayan. 50, 100 na kongresista, mayor atin, ang kabataan ng pag-asa ng bayan. Para bang lip service na yon. Sinasabi ko, pag ang kabataan Pilipino, kahit dagdagan mo ng 50 milyong kabataan Pilipino yan, walang pangarap sa buhay, walang advocacy para sa community niya at para sa bansa, walang disiplina sa sarili, walang advocacy na tulungan, i-inform ang kanyang kapwa kabataan, hindi magiging pag-asa ng bayan yun. Baka maging problema pa ng kanyang pamilya at ng bayan dahil nakatambay lang siya, wala siyang advocacy, wala siyang itinutulong sa ating bansa. And because of you, youth advocates, we will bring you to the national leaders of the SK for you to inform them of this very important advocacy para ang inyong advocacy maging advocacy ng lahat ng SK at through the SK maging advocacy ng lahat ng kabataan Pilipino. So muli, thank you for this opportunity. Maraming salamat po, Secretary Borge at sa ating mga kasama.
Thank you very much, Yusek Cardema, for bringing this event to a close and for sharing your experience and lifelong advocacy to empowering our youth towards climate action. May we call back on stage Secretary Robert E. A. Borge to have a closing remarks also for this event.
Thank you very much. Very spirited, energetic, animated, and very passionate speech. Now, let's have a warm round of applause to Yusek Cardema. I think my message will be a send-off and not a farewell message. But first, maraming salamat sa lahat sa inyo na nanunood at nandito ngayon at nanunood online. I only leave you with a phrase that I learned. I don't remember who wrote it. Kasi in the context of what Yusek Cardema said, the individual plays an important part and every youth plays an important part. Pero most of the time, the argument is, I am only a drop in the ocean. And that type of mentality restricts somebody from being the great person that he or she can be. So what is needed, especially during our time? Do not think of yourselves as just a drop in the ocean. Think of yourselves as an ocean in a drop. With that centering ng values, commitment, at ng inyong puso at isipan, you are aware that you can do much. While you are alone, you will be able to do something. And if you continue working with everybody, look at the person beside you, to your right and to your left. Imagine those oceans in a drop and what you can do. Imagine what the youth can do for our nation and for the world. I think the answer is we will be able to do more. Maraming salamat po. Mabuhay po ang kabataang Pilipino. Mabuhay ang Pilipinas.
Thank you very much, Secretary Borje, for those inspiring words. It was truly a memorable experience to be part of this event, especially throughout the 16th Global Warming and Climate Change Consciousness Week 2023. Before we end, we'd like to take a moment to gather your valuable feedback. Please scan the QR codes located on your tables for our post-evaluation forms. Your insights are crucial to us as we strive to enhance and refine our future events. We would also like to express our gratitude to the Filipino Sign Language interpreters for ensuring the accessibility for our event to everyone. Your commitment to inclusivity is truly appreciated, making this gathering more meaningful to all our participants. Everyone, let's give a round of applause to our FSLI representatives. At this point, we would also like to acknowledge the youth organizations present here today. So when I say your youth organization, we would like to request you to please stand so we can properly acknowledge your presence today in amplifying the voices of the youth towards climate action. So we have representatives from the National Youth Volunteers Coalition, representatives from the Climate Tracker Asia Incorporated. Please don't be shy, we'd want to acknowledge your presence for today. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming to this event. So we also have representatives from the Wetlands International Philippines.
We gotta rise up.
Representatives from the Youth Climate Navigators. Thank you very much po. Thank you for coming. We have representatives galing naman po sa Universidad de Manila, Samahan ng Mag-aaral ng Agham Pampolitika. Thank you very much. Representatives from the Philippine Chambers of Commerce and Industry, NCR. Everyone, let's also give a round of applause for the ship of Southeast Asian and Japanese Youth Program Batch Silay. We also have representatives from the Makakalikasan Project Philippines Incorporated. Lastly, we have representatives from the Rotaract Club of Malabon Pioneers. Everyone, thank you very much. Thank you very much for supporting this event and for letting our voices be heard and propelling us to work collectively for a more sustainable and resilient future. Everyone, let's give a round of applause to all our youth organizations present po.